Welcome into NFL Daily. I am your host, Tom Downey. We're going to break down all of the latest NFL rumors and news on today's video, from the draft to even some NFL free agency notes. Trey Lance held his pro day today, his second pro day actually. The lead team, if you will, who was at the pro day was the San Francisco 49ers, right? They're looking to see which quarterback they want at number 3. Their plans are still rather unknown. They've gone to Mac Jones's, and now the second version of both Justin Fields and Trey Lance. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan were in attendance as well. Plenty of intrigue surrounding the Niners and Trey Lance. Of course, there is no guarantee the Niners take Lance at number 3. That still is very much up in the air. And there were several other teams looking at the locked and loaded round 1 pick. Lance is a difficult evaluation for a couple different reasons. Start with the positives, right? He dominated North Dakota State, and it was very obvious watching him play against the FCS level of competition. He did not belong out there, in the sense that he was clearly a substantially better player. Trey Lance, every time he took the field, was the best player on the football field. And frankly, it wasn't even all that close. No disrespect to other North Dakota State players, but he was the best of that grouping out there. He dominated the competition. Of course, he barely played football last year. There are some accuracy concerns. He has the size, the athletic ability, the arm strength that you want. There's a lot of questions around everything else, though, which means checking him out is certainly important for NFL teams. There were 4 notable teams present at Lance's pro day today. The 49ers picking number 3, the Falcons picking number 4, the Denver Broncos at 9, and the Patriots at number 15. Could it be a smokescreen? Maybe. But I think it is at least noteworthy that the Falcons, Broncos, and Patriots are all doing their due diligence on a potential franchise quarterback, given some long-term uncertainty for those teams. And the Falcons have Matt Ryan for now. Denver probably a little bit more murky with just Drew Lock as a borderline starting caliber quarterback on their team. Now, there were also, I feel worth mentioning here, teams not at Trey Lance's pro day. Carolina at number 8, Washington at 19, the Bears at 20. Could it be a smokescreen for those teams as well? Absolutely possible. Maybe they didn't want to telegraph a potential trade up if you're Washington or Chicago. But where Trey Lance goes, whether it's 3, 4, somewhere else, will have major implications throughout the 2021 NFL Draft, especially if a team like the Falcons want to take him, or if the Broncos want to go up and get him, or if they just sit pat and he falls to them. So let me know in the comments section, folks. Where do you believe Trey Lance will go? Who is going to draft him in the 2021 NFL Draft? Get your votes in for me in the comments section. Let's talk Broncos and Falcons now on Chat Sports, because there is a report from Woody Paige, the longtime Denver Broncos reporter and former ESPN analyst, their guest, whatever you want to call it there. He says the Broncos and Falcons have had trade talks about a potential draft day move in which the Denver Broncos jump up to number 4 to get whatever quarterback they are currently pursuing and desperately want to be their franchise savior, who's not named Drew Lock. And the Falcons then would move down and acquire extra assets. Now, background note here, there have been several reports that the Falcons want to move down. Their cost, however, likely pretty high. Woody Paige did specify what he thinks the cost would be. Here's what he had together in his trade package. Denver Broncos get, of course, number 4 overall. A 5th-round pick as well, because the Falcons have 3 of them. He did not specify which round pick it would be. And then the Falcons receive a 1st-round pick, number 9 overall, a 3rd-round pick, number 71, and a future 1st-rounder. So who says no? Get your votes in here for me. B for the Broncos, F for the Falcons. I think of the options here, unless Atlanta just wants to move down because they don't want to take Kyle Pitts and they want to move down for somebody else on the defensive side of the ball, I think the Falcons say no. The trade value chart says this is about fair, but remember, folks, the trade value chart goes out the window, as we saw with the Niners-Dolphins trade, when you are moving up for a franchise quarterback. It becomes more expensive. Now, the expectation right now is that Trevor Lawrence goes 1, Zach Wilson goes 2, although he's my number 3 quarterback prospect, and then one of Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones go off the board at number 3, and that would leave at least one of Fields or Lance, the 2 names most routinely connected to the Denver Broncos on the board at number 4. And if they don't believe in Drew Lock, I would highly encourage Denver to go out and get their guy, because I am a big fan of Fields, and I am prepared to risk it all for Trey Lance as well. If I could get one of those guys, even though there's a newish regime in terms of the front office with George Payton as the new GM, I think that makes sense for Denver, even though the cost would be expensive. For the Falcons, meanwhile, if you move down, you're not going to get Kyle Pitts. Penei Sewell's probably off the board as well. That leaves a list that looks something like this. Patrick Surtain, who of these guys I think makes the most sense for them. Fills a big-time need at cornerback, is for me at least, the number 1 defensive player in this year's class. Rashawn Slater might be the best player overall on their board. Do they want a linebacker? Micah Parsons? An edge rusher is a huge need. Do they trust the medical stuff for Jalen Phillips? There's J.C. Horn as well if they don't want Surtain. So the Falcons could move down if that's something that they really wanted to pursue. I will make note, and this is very important as well, there are other reports out of Denver that, no, wait a minute, the Broncos have not had talks yet with the Atlanta Falcons. So somebody here is wrong and or they're being lied to by their sources. The Broncos have been heavily linked to quarterbacks this offseason. And I will float this out there as just a thing to make note of. If you are Denver and you are trying to move up to number 4, it behooves you to not let that information get out. Because you know what happens then? Other teams might try to move up. And meanwhile, if you're the Falcons and you do want to move down, actually makes sense to leak that information so that more teams try to move up to number 4. So I don't know who's right, who's wrong, whatever. It does make some logical sense if Denver does not believe in Drew Lock. I think the cost would be more than what Woody Paige had suggested. We'll see if I'm right or wrong, or if it even happens. So will the Broncos and Falcons end up making a deal? Get your votes in for me. Type Y for yes they will, or type N for no they won't. Chat Sports is now available on the Newsbreak app. Go download it today using our link to help support the show at chatsports.com/newsbreak. Now, once you download that and follow all the Chat Sports stuff on there, you're not just going to get sports content. I am, in particular, and this is something that I have struggled with, am not good about staying in the know with what's going on in terms of my local community, the news side of it, even national politics stuff, which is important. I have a little sports bubble, and I like to live in that. Probably not the best for myself, so I got the Newsbreak app, and it's helping me out significantly in that area. You can get it today, too, by checking the comment section and the description. chatsports.com/newsbreak. That link is in there, so all you guys have to do is go click that link, download it. It's that simple. chatsports.com/newsbreak. This way, you can stay educated with what's going on in your community. Let's head to the Baltimore Ravens now, where we have an update on the Lamar Jackson contract talks. Ravens GM Eric DeCosta revealed that the two sides have at least had some conversations, and extension talks have officially started for them. Now, DeCosta also said that both sides want to get a deal done. That is something Lamar wants and the Ravens want, and because Lamar Jackson has an MVP, so that makes sense for the Ravens, and Lamar wants to get paid, obviously. We'll talk about the cost of it in a second, because it's going to be expensive. Now, Lamar Jackson in 2020 wasn't quite as good as he was in 2019. He still remains an absolutely electric football player, one of the most fun players to watch in the NFL. And I think it is smart of the Ravens to try to be proactive when it comes to contract talks. If you believe you have your franchise quarterback, yes, it is expensive, but you will save money by doing it sooner rather than later. Everyone made a big deal about, wow, the Eagles paid Carson Wentz so much money, which blew up in their faces, make no mistake about it. Do we think Lamar is Carson Wentz? I don't think so. I think he's a bit better than that, especially with the guy we've seen last year. But even Wentz is no longer a top 5 highest paid quarterback. On the flip side, there's the Dallas Cowboys. They weren't sold on Dak Prescott to start, and they dragged their feet. They didn't get a deal done. If the Cowboys had paid Dak even around the 2019 season, he wouldn't be on the top five highest paid quarterback list. He would not be. Not at all. Instead, he's now number 2. So if I'm the Ravens, I am being active. I am being progressive, and I'm trying to get this deal done, especially before one other player not on this list. That is Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills quarterback. Same draft class. Allen's coming off his best year ever. The Bills clearly believe in him. So because of that, if I'm the Ravens, I would prefer to get a deal done before Josh Allen gets paid. Because whatever Josh Allen makes, which I think might surpass what Dak Prescott made, at least by a little bit, I would not be surprised if Lamar's camp tried to exceed that, but maybe you get lucky. Maybe the franchise quarterback says, yes, I will take a little bit less to help build the team around me. So let me know in the comments section. Make your predictions for me. How much do you think Lamar Jackson will get, not what he should get, what he will get per year? It's going to be at least 35. It might be 40. So get your votes in for me right now in the comments section. Let's talk Bengals here. Ja'Marr Chase. Could he be the pick by Cincinnati at number 5 overall? Peter King, who was confused as to why the Bengals might not take Penei Sewell, says he hears plenty of buzz around Ja'Marr Chase and Cincinnati, which, by the way, would reunite him with his old college teammate, Joe Burrow. In general, this is what I think the Bengals are trying to do. Their plan is to get offensive line help and to get another receiver on the outside for Joe Burrow. Peter King mentioned, well, what about taking Penei Sewell and then Rondale Moore? That makes sense to me. I get that. But where does Rondale Moore play? He's going to be a slot receiver for you. Ja'Marr Chase is an outside option. He and T. Higgins, great outside threats. I mean, we saw what Ja'Marr Chase did the last time he had Joe Burrow. Tyler Boyd is your slot receiver. So because of that, if you're trying to figure out how to balance getting a good offensive lineman, because remember, the Bengals are actually fine, at least for this year, at tackle. Between Jonah Williams and Riley Reif, they're okay there. I've got Penei Sewell higher than Chase on my board, personally. But here's the question the Bengals are faced with. If they take Penei Sewell, they want to go receiver in round 2. Terrace Marshall, Rashad Bateman might be off the board, in which case it might be Diami Brown as the next best outside wide receiver. If they take Ja'Marr Chase, I feel pretty good about a Samuel Cosmi, Alex Leatherwood in particular, Liam Eichenberg being on the board for Cincinnati. So I actually get what the Bengals are thinking here. They can get a tackle in round 2 and still have a dynamic playmaker for Joe Burrow. They can check off both of those boxes. There is no wrong answer here. The Bengals are going to get a great player in round 1 and she'll get a good player in round 2. But let me know what you guys think. If you ran the Bengals, who would you take here? Type C for Ja'Marr Chase or type in S for Penei Sewell. Get your votes in for me in the comment section. Who would you rather draft if you were the Bengals and trying your damnedest to keep Joe Burrow healthy and productive in the NFL? The NFL draft is rapidly approaching. We are inside of 2 weeks away. So for all the news and rumors and draft talk, and of course the actual NFL draft, live for all 7 rounds, hit that big red button and subscribe today. Let's go to Richard Sherman. We'll be brief here. The updates on Sherman and what he's thinking about. Report from ESPN out of New York. This is Rich Cimini, the Jets beat writer. Says that Robert Saleh, the Jets head coach and former Niners defensive coordinator, wants to add Sherman. However, Sherman prefers a West Coast team, or at least appears to prefer, is the phrasing that Cimini used. A West Coast team that is a contender. And yes, oh, by the way, money is still a factor as it relates to Sherman and his next NFL team. Now, I fully expect Sherman to sign after the NFL draft. I don't think he's going to sign before that, in part because whatever team doesn't get a cornerback in the draft, that need is more obvious. It is more accentuated. So from that perspective, Sherman might be able to cash in a little bit more and want to impact the comp pick for him, which always favors teams as well. Now, 2020 Sherman, all these stats from Pro Football Reference, not great. Not as good as it was in 2019. At this stage in his career, with injuries starting to kind of pile up for Sherman, I don't know if he's going to be prime Sherman ever again. But I do think he can help a team, especially if you're looking for a guy who can start now and help mentor a younger organization, which I think that the Jets do make so much sense for Sherman. I think that might be in their best interest. Of course, we'll see not too long after the NFL draft ends. My expectation, Sherman will sign rather quickly because he wants to get paid in some capacity, and he's going to be one of the best free agents left there unsigned. But you guys can make your predictions for me. Where do you believe that Richard Sherman will end up signing? Get your predictions in the comments section.